And welcome to Two Guys on Politics. I'm Ray Hanania,
I'm Bill Lipinski.
and this is season 2, episode 7. 7 is lucky number, Bill. I think this topic is so important. The one that there's so many things going on in the world, but we've really kind of talked a lot about Biden and Hunter Biden and the divide and everything. We thought we'd shoot into something less controversial like immigration and migrants, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, you saw the plan that Mayor Johnson is proposing that I think there are like 2,000 migrants that are living in police stations, not including the other thousands of migrants that have been placed elsewhere. And he wants to move them out of the police stations and put them in these permanent tents with, permanent rooms and feed them and provide them with heat and everything, all the luxuries of somebody that's being cared for by the government and the taxpayers. And he told every alderman, and I can only imagine what you would have said that 25 years ago as an alderman in the 23rd Ward, to find a location in your ward where we can put a giant tent and put some of these migrants. So you've seen this plan, right? What do you think of it?
Well, first of all, the first culprit, as far as I'm concerned, is President Biden and the Democratic administration in Washington, D.C., allowing all of these people come into this country illegally. Now, I don't care if they come across the border and they're stopped by the Border Patrol, and the Border Patrol takes down their name and says to them, okay, you're here. Now we want you to go and find some place to stay. In 6 or 8 months, we'll call you back and we'll have a judge talk to you and decide if you get asylum or not.
Right.
I understand that it's about 6% of the people ever return to have a judge decide if they should stay or not. Okay. So that's one thing that's a big, big problem here. And I cannot believe the news media, as liberal as they are, still doesn't recognize that and hasn't talked about it. Now we get to these cities that are sanctuary cities, New York, where the mayor is complaining about it's going to destroy the city of New York, all these migrants. We got to get some money from the federal government. Los Angeles is another one. Chicago is another one. But our very progressive mayor here in Chicago, he's going to put up these giant tents, one in every ward in the city of Chicago, heated. Are they going to be air conditioned too in the summertime?
Yes, heated, air conditioned, food, fed, beds, clothing. They'll be partitioned off a little bit inside these things. 50 of them.
Each family should have their privacy, I assume.
Yes, they didn't have it in the countries they came from, but obviously they should have it here in the United States.
Yeah,
where they impose themselves.
So we now have the local problem. Now, you had mentioned earlier, and I agree with you, if these migrants keep coming, the city of Chicago is going to say, we have gone beyond the breaking point.
Right.
We have to have Cook County start putting these illegal immigrants throughout Cook County. Places like Waukegan, LaGrange, the part of Hinsdale that's in Cook County, Summit, Oak Lawn, Hickory Hills. Now, the people who, the city of Chicago can't do that on its own, but the governor of the state of Illinois and the state legislature, controlled by the Democratic Party, certainly can do that. Now, where's the money going to come from, Ray? Is it going to drop out of the sky?
Open your wallet, Bill.
That's right, absolutely. Everybody in Chicago, Cook County, will be paying for this.
The state of Illinois.
And if Cook County cannot, handle it, well, we'll just have to move into, DuPage, and Lake County, and the other collar counties around Chicago and Cook. Now, I have sympathy for these people, but come on, Where
Right.
is the point we have to take in everybody from around the world? It's not just people coming from Central America, South America. There are people coming over from Ukraine,
Right.
going into South America, working their way up here. There are people from Africa doing the same thing. So it's not only the people from Central America. And, another thing I just thought of, are we going to have to set up special schools for these kids? Because they're
Yeah, of
various.
course. Yes. We're going to provide food. We're going to provide health care. And we're going to do everything for them. What we don't hear the mayor saying, or anybody, and again, I don't want to just pick on Mayor Johnson, because this is a problem that has been in the city of Chicago, as we both know, since the 70s. You and I both remember Congressman or Alderman Luis Gutierrez, former cab driver who became a Chicago alderman, taxi cab driver, became a Chicago alderman, and made the championing of immigration reform his number one priority. And of course, he served 20 years in Congress and never achieved that goal. And I told you my theory behind all this is that there are officials like the congressman, is my opinion, who need controversies like immigration to not be resolved so they can have a platform to generate support. And I think immigrants traditionally, because the left supports open immigration and anybody can come in and walk in off the street, and the right is opposed to it, the extremes. I think the center has the actual middle ground, but I think because the left is for it and the far right is against it, the left believes all these immigrants and migrants and refugees who come into this country are going to vote Democratic, that somehow we will make them citizens without going through the proper process. And like you said, I'm not against immigration. I'm for the rule of law, because you can't have a democracy without the rule of law. And this country is founded on the rule of law. Our Constitution establishes and defines the rule of law. If you eliminate the rule of law or make exceptions to the rule of law, then you're basically making an exception to democracy, and we're weakening it. So there are Arabs. I'm Arab American. There are Arabs. I don't want them coming in illegally. I don't want them coming in as migrants. There are Poles who have come in here. I don't want them coming in illegally. So it's not about ethnicity or race. It's about the process and the rule of law. Everybody should come in through the right process, not just walk across the border and then we're told that, oh, now we have to take care of them because the country they came from couldn't take care of them. And maybe this is the backlash of this perception of America, that the streets of America, all the immigrants were told, were paved in gold. So why not come here? And in fact, they find out, no, it's not gold. It's paved in politics. It's paved in conflict. It's paved in hardship. And it's paved in uncertainty. And that's not the way it should be.
If you come here and you're legal and you work hard, I'm all for you. And there
Absolutely.
have been generations after generations of all races that have come here and done exactly that. Another group that to me is being pushed aside are our own American citizens, the homeless here, the drug addicts on the street. Those are the people we should be helping. I continually see people of African American heritage on television that don't have a place to live in this country. Those are the people that should be taken care of right off the bat, not some illegal aliens. And I hate to say those things because I'm a compassionate individual. I don't want to see anybody suffer, but we have to draw a line someplace. This is America. This should be for Americans.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, listen, we have a problem, and I'm not saying let's be harsh to these people. I'm saying that put a stop to it so it doesn't keep getting worse. I support the sanctuary cities for the existing people that are here, because the truth is, I don't want to see anybody shivering out in the cold. I don't want to see somebody harassed just because they came in through a flawed system that they weren't responsible for. They just came into the country. We're responsible for it. Our leadership is responsible, and they've been horribly, um, you know, um, uh, unresponsive to the needs of what needs to be done. We allowed them to come in. So I want to help them, but at the same time, we need to stop it. And instead of talking about how we're stopping it, all we talk about is, hey, how do we help the people that get here? And that sends the message to these other countries, hey, look at what happened to these migrants. Look at the place they're living better than they do in whatever city they've come from, whatever place where their government ignored them, their government abandoned them, their government abused them, mistreated them, tortured them, abused their civil rights, denied them work, denied them food, where they've fomented crime. So they run to us. We should make those countries responsible. And unfortunately, that idea has been tarnished because it was embraced by the former President Donald Trump, who did a horrible job of addressing this issue too. I compare what Trump did with immigration to what the former Congressman Luis Gutierrez did with immigration. Nothing but political exploitation for their own selfish benefit. And Biden is doing the exact same thing.
Well, I remember I was in Congress with Lou, and Lou and I were very friendly. And he used to come to me every 6 months or so asking me to sign on to his comprehensive immigration bill. And I would say, no, Lou, I'm not going to do that. I voted for amnesty back when Ronald Reagan was president for all these illegal aliens. I voted for that because the president of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan, called me and asked me to do it. So I says, okay, Mr. President, I will do it for you, but this is the last time I'm ever going to do something like this. And then Lou would say, well, there's an awful lot of people of Polish heritage who are Polish citizens, not American citizens, who are over here. And I said, yes, that's very true. And if we deport people back to, various countries in South America, Central America, then all those Poles should be deported too. I am against illegal immigration. The thing that amazed me was that Congressman Gutierrez, was Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans, when they're born, are considered American citizens. So he wasn't championing the people that were in his district. He was championing people in other districts across the city, the county, and the country.
It was a political drive because it was a good foundation for somebody like Luis Gutierrez. And I don't mind criticizing him. I helped run his first election, and I regret it. When he was an alderman, I was very sympathetic to his stories and would publish them and write them and give him a lot of publicity. The former cab driver, he'd always say, I was just a taxi cab driver and look where I'm at, alderman. And of course, like journalists, I always wondered, is it better to be an alderman or a cab driver? Which one was better? I'm not sure. Certainly being a cab driver is better than being a journalist in America. But he went on to Congress, and you could tell that immigration was a ladder to power, politics, and not to a solution. And if they ever solved it, what would someone like Luis Gutierrez talk about? Freedom for everybody, equality for everybody? No, because that doesn't generate the votes that he wanted, and other politicians like them to talk about it. Now, there are extremes on both sides. I think the far right is wrong. I think the far left is wrong. I think in the middle, I think when you really talk to Americans, they say, we're against illegal immigration. We're against people just walking into this country. We want a system enforced that requires them to come in legally where they're vetted. And we know, do they have criminal backgrounds? We know that when they step on the soil, that they have a system to support them, not to rely on the government to pay their way. My parents came here under those rules and they managed to survive. The system works if you do it right, but so far nobody wants to follow the legal system. And I think that's what the real problem is.
Well, I tell you what's happening also. The more and more illegal aliens that they allow into this country, the less and less support there is for immigration by the vast majority of the American people. I'm sure that if you checked what it was in 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000, the support for immigration was much greater than if you check today. I am sure it is almost microscopic because we've had so many those illegal people come into this country, costing our taxpayers money and not taking care of our own people.
And you mentioned President Reagan. I think at the time, didn't they, when they offered amnesty, they said, this is it. The 14 million people, I think, were given amnesty, maybe less or a little more. I can't remember the exact number. But the idea was we're going to give them amnesty, and now we got to change the system. No more people are going to come in. In fact, 14 million more people came in after that. And remember, didn't we have a second amnesty at some point? They tried.
Well, they tried, yes. Well, that's when Lou was talking to me about it all the time. That was for a second one. Yeah, well, that never came to be.
And yet the problem continues to grow. And like you said, these people are told, okay, we're going to let you in, but you need to come to the meeting to, where we can look at your case. And only 20% of the people, probably less, show up, and the rest of them filter through. And I'm really tired of reading these stories. It's bad enough that we have crime in this country. It's worse that we have crime committed by people who aren't even in the system, and makes it hard to track them down. And when they commit a crime, they can run out of this country and we have no way to get them. If you're a criminal, you want to be a non-citizen coming into this country because you don't have an identification, you don't have fingerprints, you don't have a process to chase you down. And I absolutely feel that that is so wrong.
But you can't get a driver's license. If you're an illegal alien, you can get a driver's license so you can drive a car here.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you can't get a driver's license illegally. That doesn't mean once you're in this country, you have the ability to fabricate documents, do whatever you want, get a license. More accidents are on some of the border states. I remember talking to somebody from the Department of Homeland Security that almost 90% of the accidents that people had in the border along Arizona involved immigrants who were not documented. They're undocumented and illegal. And then when they get in an accident, they would run and nobody could find them. And who gets stuck with the burden of paying that? The insurance industry, which then pulls money from each of our pockets. The point is, yes, if you work hard, you can be very successful. But I didn't work hard so that people can take my money to help somebody sneak into the country and enjoy the same life that I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying a life because I work for it. I'm enjoying a life because my parents worked for it. And if they need help working for theirs, I want to help them. We should have programs to help them. Legal immigrants should get that support, but that's the ones that come in through the legal process and the rule of law. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing these people living now and, hey, why even become a citizen? I could be a tent city citizen. I could live in a Chicago tent city. The mayor is going to support me. And I'll probably even get a chance to vote one day. And I definitely am going to vote for that guy that allowed illegal immigration to come into this country. And that's what I think the far left and the so-called progressives really want. They see this as a way to boost the population and bully their agenda into reality.
Unfortunately, Raymond, I agree with you. The only thing what you had to say today is you talked about this is a democracy. This is not a democracy. This is a democratic republic. It's the far left that keeps saying it's a democracy. A democracy means that every single citizen has a vote on every single office. That's
And we
not the
don't.
way this country
No.
operates, and that's why we've been as successful as we have been. We vote for people who represent us at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. That's one of the principal reasons, other than hard work, that this country has been so very, very successful. Well, you shouldn't have to say that. There's no country in the world that has so many people trying to get into it as America does. Why? Because if you work hard, you could have a very good life.
When you move into a country, you should live by the country's rules and learn their culture. I was listening to somebody on the radio talking about how 30% of immigrants to this country don't even speak English, and which means that we have to translate for them. Even a lot of citizens in this country, and I'm not just talking about Hispanics and Latinos. A lot of citizens don't even speak English. I don't understand that. Is it our responsibility now? We translate everything. I'll tell you, it's upsetting to me when I go to a bank and it asks me what language I want to speak it in. I don't want to have to answer that question.
You
I
shouldn't
work.
have to.
No, we shouldn't. And it's racist. And I'll tell you why it's racist. The bank will offer you two choices. You want English or this language? What about the other language? I'm Arab. I don't see the bank saying, oh, do you want to do this in Arabic? So we either do it for everybody or we don't do it. And we're not going to do it for everybody, so we shouldn't do it. That's my feeling.
I think one of the worst things is one of the most precious rights that we have in this country is the right to vote. We should not have to print ballots in about 6 or 7 different languages. It should be printed in English, English only. And if you don't understand enough English, then I don't think you should be voting in this country. It's as simple as that.
And if the laws of immigration were enforced, we wouldn't have that problem. People that would come into this country would be learning English. And listen, I get it. Your great grandmother who comes in with you, she never is going to learn English. I understand that. But her children who are with you coming in here, adult children, should be speaking English. And those adults, I run into them all the time. They can't speak English. They only speak whatever language is from their country. In the Arab community, I have some neighbors, Polish Americans, great people. And then some of them can't speak any English. I have a hard time talking to a couple of my neighbors who are Poles. And you know what's interesting about the Polish community? The majority of them, they come into this country, they work hard, they come in legally. The majority of them, they work hard, they find an industry, and they find a way to make a living. And I think that opportunity is there for everybody. If some immigrant from a country comes in legally and can't find a way to make a living, or things get worse for them, I don't mind helping them because I know their intent is to make a living, not to live on the welfare of the money and the taxpayers who are already overburdened with high taxes. It's just wrong. And this whole system is messed up.
Well, let me tell you, my grandfather on my father's side came here in 1895. He lived to 1946. He did learn English. He was a very successful individual in that he ultimately became the head custodian for all the horses that were billeted at the Chicago Avenue Armory. His wife came here 5 years later. She lived to be until she was into 1949. She never learned how to speak English. She could only say my name in Polish. Why? Because the neighborhood she lived in, everybody was Polish. The shop that she went to shop at, they were Polish. Where she went to buy clothes, they were Polish. That was a mistake, okay? But, all her children spoke Polish and English, and they spoke the English quite well. My father, who was a very strong believer in English only, the only person he ever spoke Polish to was to his mother. When his mother died, he never spoke Polish to anybody again. Now, so that's what I have in my background.
When I was raised, my father came here from Jerusalem. My mother was from Bethlehem, which means that Jesus is my cousin, by the way. They came
Yes,
here. My dad, when I was born, did not want me to speak Arabic. He wanted me to speak English. He was so proud to be an American, and yet he also had a pride to be Palestinian. He loved his culture. He spoke Arabic, but he wanted to be accepted as an American because he came to America to be part of America. So he made me speak English. I have cousins and relatives who their English accents are so strong, they have this Arab, their first language is Arabic. And I know his brothers wanted their kids to learn Arabic first and then English. I think it's a burden when at least there was a burden not to speak English. And I think it held people back. Today, they're trying to cut corners. If you don't speak English, don't worry about it. We'll help you out. We'll translate everything so you never have to learn. Why put pressure on people to learn English when they don't have to? I think it's called tough love. If you really love the immigration system, you got to be tough and you got to make them do the right thing. And this is not, again, people are going to say, oh, you guys hate immigrants. No, we don't hate immigrants. We love immigrants. This is an immigrant country. We're the children of immigrants. But we
absolutely.
want it done the right way. And we want it done with, in a way where the immigrant builds his own career and his own family life on his own with our help, not to be given a welfare handout. I've never taken, even when I left the military, I served during the Vietnam War, even after I left, I was offered the opportunity to get unemployment. I declined it. I did not want to take unemployment insurance. I felt it was a terrible way to live a life. It would be too easy to take the money and become lazy and not do anything. So I struggled. I found a place and I worked. It wasn't the ideal place, but I ended up making money. And then that money grew because I had the drive to make money. That's the real immigrant experience that immigrants should be experiencing. So for those people that are going to attack us, too bad for them because they're the cause of the problems that we see in this country today. Those people that defend a broken system.
I concur with you.
All right, Bill, I know that we wanted to change the subject and look, and I think this is one of those times when I think this is an important topic that isn't discussed because people are afraid to be
Oh,
called
absolutely.
names.
Sure.
And it's wrong. We should be able to speak honestly and genuinely and not have our words sliced and diced and misinterpreted. We're not anti people, we're not anti immigrant. We support the rule of law. So I'm Ray Hanania,
I'm Bill Lipinski, a fellow American.
and we hope you'll join us again next week here at Two Guys on Politics. We'll talk to you again.